Sometimes people just disappear, like your dad when he went to the store and never came back. He was a deadbeat and so are you. But some disappearances are more mysterious. In fact, many historical figures have disappeared under mysterious circumstances, never to be seen again. Even royals have vanished, like Zanza, prince of the Great Hittite Empire. He was not first in line for the throne, but almost became pharaoh of Egypt, one of the few other great powers of the time. As part of a diplomatic arrangement, he was sent to marry an Egyptian princess, which sounds good until you realize how inbred they were. And to make things worse, he seems to have gone missing on the journey. The Egyptian court claims to have seen no sign of Zanza, and he never returned home. His bride-to-be ended up marrying another future pharaoh, her brother Tutankhamun, and the Hittites believed he was murdered over this. Trouble is though, we don't have much true detail on what happened, and for all we know, Zanza could have died in a big sandstorm. So I prefer to look at more recent disappearances, like that of William Hare, one of history's most infamous criminals. In the early 1800s, grave robbing was so common people had to install metal cages over burials. Why were so many people stealing human corpses? Well, for money. So much was still unknown about the body, and medical schools were in desperate need of fresh cadavers. But these were superstitious times. Very few people donated their bodies to science, and only convicts and orphans were typically claimed by the state for dissection. So as always, a black market emerged to fill the void. Just like today, doctors in the 19th century were shady characters. Often they would employ the services of body snatchers, people who would literally steal and sell corpses. In time, fortunes were made, and it became an industry in itself. So when William Hare found himself in financial trouble, body snatching was a way out. He was a small-time landlord, an angry and disturbed man. When one of his tenants died, he simply sold their corpse for an unpaid debt. To do so, he brought in the most shady friend he had, William Burke, and as it proved profitable, they began looking for more corpses to sell. But unlike many in the business, they would not rob cemeteries. Instead, they had a more direct approach, getting homeless people drunk and smothering them. In a single year, they killed 16 people, selling them to the same doctor at a local medical school in Edinburgh. Then in 1828, they were caught in the act of murder. But proving murder in those days was very difficult, especially when victims' bodies had been cut open by medical students. Fearing they would go unpunished, authorities made a deal with Hare, since he was clearly less psychopathic than Burke. All charges against Hare and his wife were dropped, in exchange for a full confession, which at trial was used to find William Burke guilty of murder. In a classic 1800s prank, the judge ordered his body be given to science. So after the hanging, Burke was taken to a medical school for dissection. As for Hare, he was a free man. He was last seen heading south towards the English border, and after that he was never seen again. Some said he was murdered on the journey by a victim's relative, but the most common theory is he relocated to London. It is said he took up work in a lime pit, but after getting burnt lime in his eyes, ended up a blind beggar on the streets. Others claim he fled to Canada, where he again took to serial murder, but either way he was a fun guy. Also in the 1820s, another strange disappearance unfolded in New York. The man in question was William Morgan, a legendary hater who accidentally became a political martyr. Like all great men, he began life as a bricklayer, yet in time ended up in numerous careers, including as a shopkeeper and a soldier. At one point he even opened a brewery, but it was soon destroyed in a big fire. With it went his entire life savings, so with nothing left he was forced to again work in construction. It seems to have been around this time that Morgan got involved in Freemasonry. His exact level of involvement is unknown, but Morgan would later claim to have reached the level of Master Mason. What we do know is he was an active member, giving speeches on Freemasonry across the state of New York, and he at one point established his own Masonic lodge. But Morgan was a divisive figure within the community. Some accused him of lying his way into the secret society, and of establishing his own lodge simply to get ahead. For a while he denied these allegations, but when it became clear the tide was turning, he did what we all would. He betrayed them. Teaming up with a local newspaper, he wrote a tell-all book revealing the secrets of Freemasonry. Remember that the Freemasons are a secret society, and while today they are largely seen as harmless, it wasn't always like that. In the early 1800s, they were treated with a great deal of suspicion, partly due to their undeniable influence on society. In fact, when Morgan published his book, the then president was a Freemason. And that's not to mention the countless lesser political or business leaders who were also members. So for William Morgan to openly show disdain for them was a bold move. Not only did his book provide specific detail on Masonic rituals, but it was highly critical in nature. So as soon as the book was published, all hell broke loose. First of all, the office of a local newspaper was attacked and set on fire. Then Morgan was charged with a series of petty crimes. None of them stuck, but his persecution had clearly only just begun. One night a group of Masons actually bailed him out of jail. Then they rushed him into a carriage and rode off into the night. That was the last anyone saw of William Morgan, as it would later turn out. What happened next is unclear, but the most common theory is they drowned him in the Niagara River. The Masons claimed to have given him money on the condition he leave for Canada and never return. But amazingly, no one believed it. So a public who already distrusted the Masons now had a martyr who died for the cause. What resulted was a massive anti-Masonic movement. An entire political party was even founded to oppose them, which in 1828 became the first third party to win seats in Congress. Still, the disappearance of William Morgan remains an open mystery. Not every historical disappearance happened to somebody called William. For example, there was a man called Holt. A good name in my opinion. Sounds like a cartoon character from the 1920s. But in the late 1960s he was Australia's Prime Minister, and one day he went to the beach and just disappeared. It was the 17th of December 1967, and Holt had taken the day off. With a group of friends he visited the beach, where around midday he went for a swim. They watched as he swam further and further away, until disappearing from view. To them this was not a big deal. He was a very strong swimmer. They simply expected him to soon swim back to the shore. But spoiler alert, no. Like a legend, he just never came back. Disappearances are always chaotic, but for a serving Prime Minister to disappear was a unique crisis. One of the biggest search efforts in Australian history was rapidly organised, sweeping the coast and ocean in the area he went missing, but no trace of Howard Holt was ever found. It was clear that he was gone for good, most likely having drowned, so in time he was declared dead and new elections held. But to some the whole affair was all too suspicious. In fact, some came to believe he faked his own death. One of numerous conspiracy theories, it claimed Holt was a secret communist and a spy for China. Ever nervous of being discovered, he arranged for Chinese intelligence to help him disappear at sea. According to the theory, they were waiting in a small boat or a submarine just off the coast. An entire book was eventually written putting forward this theory, and even today a lot of people claim he's still living in China. They point out that Holt refused to let his bodyguard join him on the beach trip, one less potential witness to his collection. But his wife Zara later said this was more likely so that Holt could hide his extramarital affairs. Apparently he had dozens of them, and to be fair, why else would a man go into politics? These are just a few historical disappearances I find interesting, but there are many more out there. For example, you could look into the case of William Cantello, a machine gun developer who vanished in the 1880s. Or maybe soon I will make another video like this.